Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're very happy to have you joining our show with us again this week. We're always glad for people like you, people that are interested in what's happening in the cities. Each week, we have someone on from CCX's viewing area to tell us about what are the current and future happenings of the city so that you can keep track of what's going on. And then if something is going to be pursued that you're particularly interested in, then we do encourage you to take the time to reach out to the mayors and city council people and let them know where you're coming from. So we're glad you're with us. City, tonight I'm very happy to welcome Mayor Tim Willson from Brooklyn Center.
Glad to be here.
Get us all updated on what's happening in Brooklyn Center.
Yep.
And then I've had you on before, so I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself out to the people in the audience that don't know you yet.
Okay,
a lot of people do.
yeah, I've been in office 12 years and was in planning and zoning 12 years before that. So my name is Tim Willson. If you ever have to spell it, there's 2 L's in Willson. Makes a big difference on the email type addressing stuff. And I've been the mayor of Brooklyn Center for 12 years and very happy to have been. And I'm looking forward to the future as well. So.
Yeah, because your family then has grown up with Brooklyn Center. You've seen what's been happening with all these changes that have been happening lately.
Yeah, we moved in 1990, and actually I've been instrumental with all those changes here in Brooklyn Center. And I've spent almost 25 years in city government between planning and zoning and being the mayor, and have worked very, very hard at redevelopment and crime and all the other issues that we've been able to address.
Then we talked about a number of issues beforehand. One of the ones that's happening in Brooklyn Center is Top Golf.
Yes.
And a lot of people, unless they've been watching the Post or watching your city council meetings, might not know what is involved. But can you explain what Top Golf is and then where it's going in? Because it's in process right now, right?
Yes, Top Golf is a multiple storied little units golf driving range, basically. It's built on the Japanese principle of having multiple at levels rather than one single level. And they have purchased what used to be the Regal property. We've done a land swap with the city on one property closest to 694. And then we were able to keep the bus hub parking there just by Super America as well. Now, Top Golf is the name of the business.
Yeah, that's the brand, right?
And but they're telling us that 60% of their clientele are not golfers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They have a fine restaurant that'll be in that facility, a bar, event planning, and some other activities as well. Their major focus is for individuals to come and socialize. If you wish to, and a lot of people do, you can drive golf balls down the range, and they have a whole
any time of year.
Yeah, any time of the year, and they have a whole game set up where each of those golf balls has a sensor in it. And as it goes out into that driving range, it'll fall in various holes and you collect various points. And at first we didn't know exactly who they were or what they were, but they came to us and said, we own the property, we want to come in and we want to build this facility. So we had to take a little time, and it turns out there's a lot of YouTube videos on Top Golf in various cities across the United States. It's the first one in Minnesota. And it's about the 34th one, I think, that they have in the United States. So
you know they've got some experience behind them, too.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and that's part of what the city needs to do in any development is explore the worthwhileness of the person that's building it.
Yeah. In this case, we didn't have much choice because we're not paying them anything. We're not giving them any TIF dollars. We've been working with them, to meet all the ordinances, but they didn't ask for any TIF dollars. They didn't ask for any city dollars or support out of that thing.
That's kind of cool.
Now, the other thing that we have been able to determine is with Top Golf coming in, it's going to be a destination site for the state of Minnesota and certainly for the Metro. It's very well liked. I've had comments from a lot of people across the Metro in various meetings and stuff that are going, yeah, I've been to the one in Arizona, or I've been to the one in Chicago, and it's really a nice facility. So
that'll be fun to explore.
Yes, yes.
Now, how long has that been under development? Because I'm always trying to have people point out this is not a fast process, right?
Oh, no, not at all. We're probably in the third year, I think, now. In fact, they had originally wanted to be up and operational before the Super Bowl. And couldn't work out all the details with all the land and all that. Well, if you ever bought a house, you know how detailed some of that can be. And we're talking about millions of dollars, you know, as well. So they plan on being up this fall and opening, doing their grand opening then. They haven't picked a date yet. But they're going great guns. The last maybe 12 months or so, they've been building. And they've had people out there working on that building at 30 below. I mean, every day there's been people out there working on it. So they're pretty serious about going forward.
Yeah, because that's a change from the past. That in the past, because my dad was a carpenter, there'd always be times in the winter when you'd be between jobs. Not anymore.
Nope, not anymore. They put up that plastic sheeting, they bring in portable heaters and stuff, and they just keep right on going. So.
And before it comes, what, in general, what are some of the steps that that company has gone through up to this point where they're building? Now people can see something's happening, but what were those prior steps?
Well, all the prior steps are, first of all, they got to get funding. I assume they have banks somewhere that did some of the loan process. I don't think they completely footed the whole bill themselves. And then they have to work with the city and go through the ordinances, site and building plans, planning and zoning. The council then makes its approval as well. Meanwhile, in the background, they're doing all of the things they need to do to acquire the property from the Regal company. And that's an long involved process as well, because there's a lot of paperwork involved, has to be registered with the county, the property has to be purchased, signed off on, all of those things. There are also some things that they look at when they do come in, like how does the land look environmentally? And I'm pretty sure they did some core drilling as well to look and see what the soil was. But we also talked to them, and we have a major storm water runoff. Great big tank.
In that area?
Yeah, great big tank, basically. And they've given us the easements so that if anything ever happens to it, we can go in and fix it and some of those things. But that was a concern for a while as well. And then the property just south of it, we were able to purchase from the original owner. And then we swapped that property for the property right behind Super Bowl America, and we're able to keep then the bus hub transit park and ride there.
Yeah, because it's just a lot of that, making all the property pieces fit together that the city gets involved in directly or indirectly helping arrange it, right?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
So there's just lots of parts and pieces that need to go through before that comes up. And so when did they start the construction?
Oh boy, I don't know the exact date, but it was last fall.
Yeah, and so it's going to take probably a good year before they'll have everything completed.
And in fact, a year is pretty fast.
Yeah.
We recently put up a water treatment plant, and that took us 18 months just to get that built and get all the funding and everything else. And that was extremely fast for the city to have gotten done. Other examples are like the FBI building. When that developer came in to do that site, it was 4 or 5 years, I'll bet, before that got to completion. And now we're looking at the opportunity site, which quite frankly has been in the works for probably 25 years.
Oh, right. Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit later and go into some of the details since it's edging closer.
Yeah.
Now, some of the other redevelopments were, and this is a perfect segue, was the opportunity site, and people might not know what that is unless they've been in Brooklyn Center for a while. So let's define where you're going to find this piece of open land right now.
Yeah, it's just north of what used to be the coal site. It'll be the home furniture site. They're moving forward with that whole process. But it's right across to Bass Lake Road, and there used to be a Ford dealership there. The city owns that parcel, owns all the other parcels as well, all the way up through where the strip mall was, where Pep Boys was on one end. And then it goes farther east to where the Spiritual Life place was, which used to be a theater. And then there was two little theaters in between that the city acquired as well. So there's 32 acres there. We also own, and that's the lower opportunity site, I should say.
Oh yeah, because you can go across 100 then, right?
Yes. Well, 100 is 57th and Logan. That's a different site. But farther north, we own the old Perkins site as well. And that eventually, that whole area will be redeveloped. This developer has already talked to us about what used to be the Kmart strip mall, where Slumberland has an outlet, and there's a dollar store on the other side, and then Devani's is in one corner of that. They have talked about if they can acquire that property in some way, shape, or fashion, putting in single-family homes, residential there.
That's interesting for that area.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that we have developers that are coming in with plans, with ideas. And in this case, the last two developers we talked to, both of them are financially sound. Both of them could make this happen.
So it's in the talking stages with the developers.
Yes.
Now, did you make a request for proposals, or they just came to you because they're getting ready to do something?
Well, we own it, so we've been marketing it.
Okay, right along you've been asking developers to let you know what they would do with it.
Yes. In the early years, it was really hard to get a developer to come in and even look at it. Now we have multiple developers that are bringing plans forward. So that tells you that in Brooklyn Center, with all the redevelopment we've been doing, is now becoming a strategic site for the North Metro. For office space and apartment space.
Well, and then doesn't it become more valuable as the roads become more crowded, because you're so in close contact with a lot of different areas that you can get to, barring rush hour traffic, but that you can get to fairly easily?
Yes, it does. We have a good road system all the way around. You can get to the downtowns in about 15 minutes, St. Paul or Minneapolis. And that's a great amenity. That was part of what the FBI looked at as well, so they could have good transportation. Given the apartment shortage now, and the millennials wanting to be close to downtown, Brooklyn Center is fitting right in there. You know, a few years ago, it was pretty much people wanted to move out farther than Brooklyn Center, out into the suburbs. And you're exactly right. Gas went up, became more expensive to drive, and now they want to live in closer to the downtowns.
So that you've got a couple of developers you're looking at what they're wanting to do and getting close.
It's a lot closer than it was 20 years ago.
And that's what I was just going to say. And how many years? 20.
It's been 20 or 25 years. You know, Hennepin County originally identified this as the opportunity site. And that was way back in the mid-90s. And I was on the planning and zoning then, and chairing it was a part of that study. The city did a study after that as well. And then I became mayor, and we just decided we weren't waiting for somebody else to do it, and we were going to take on redevelopment and try to push it and make it go, and we've been pretty successful at it. So.
Now, in that Kmart site where they're looking at residential housing, about how many houses are they looking to put into that area?
Yeah, a bit early to know. For sure. It depends on how they subplot it. If they get it, if they get ownership. But I have heard figures for housing anywhere in the $300,000 to $500,000 range.
Oh, that'd be good for Brooklyn Center.
It absolutely is, because it's a step up housing from the majority of the housing we have now.
Right.
Brooklyn Center's medium housing value is $184,000, according to the paper this week, in fact. And we have a lot of low income, affordable income, housing, very little high end, and nothing in the middle.
Yeah,
so that's, in order to have a good, well-rounded property value systemed city, we need to have multiple choices at multiple economic levels for people to move into.
And then people that have been in the city a long time need a place that they can move to in order to open another spot up.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Now that you mention that, I don't know if we're going to talk about the sanctuary or not, but that was one of the reasons for bringing that in, so that we had senior housing for individuals who wanted to move out of their single-family homes and raise their families, whatever, and now they want to move into senior housing, which opens up that housing for younger people and kids to come in.
Well, and that's sort of the job of the city council and city staff, to see these needs and then see what you can put together to make them happen.
Yep, absolutely.
And I thought maybe we could give people a better idea of the redevelopment process, and you could even think of an example, if you want to, of what steps should they be looking for, and how can they know where you're at in the process, and where can they find the information out?
Well, certainly watch the council meetings. We have, in the Topgolf case, we've been talking about it for probably 3 years. It's gotten out to the media at various times in different places. The FBI building as well was 3 years. The office complexes that are in the southern part of the city, southeastern part, where Hull Fertilizer used to be, and where the athletic club used to be. Those were talked about, and quite frankly, that process is fairly long in trying to get everything lined up and going forward. But the key is to be involved. You know, if you have the opportunity to serve on a commission within the city, you should, and you certainly should be able to watch council meetings. They're online. YouTubed out. CCX helps a lot with that. And word of mouth as well. You know, the Sun Post does articles and things like that. It's always amazing to me that after 2 or 3 years of study or talk or looking at some sort of issue, and then we'll start, you know, with a process, all of a sudden people are going, well, I never heard anything about it. And it's like, you know, we as a council represent our people as best we can. But our residents and our people should maintain an interest in what their council is doing. So.
And these are the decisions, the council's decisions are the closest to having a direct effect on people's lives.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, a lot of places, U.S. Conference of Mayors, they talk about how mayors and city councils are the closest link to the people of any governmental body within their cities.
And then I thought maybe talk a little bit about the zoning and the business codes and the behind-the-scene work that the city has to do, mainly through your city staff, but they have to be approved by the council. Right.
There's a whole, and we're, by the way, 2020 is the year that the new comprehensive plan has to be completed. And that's a 20-year plan that's updated every 10 years. And I've been through 3 of them already. In that comprehensive plan will be a definition of the land uses across the whole city. And that's kind of a plan or a template for the future and where the city thinks it's going to be going. Doesn't mean that we can't have things called PUDs where we can work with a developer and we can change some of that underlying zoning to make things happen as well. But generally, there's a plan there for future and all of the properties within Brooklyn Center. So.
And it takes time to put that plan together.
Yes, it does. Planning and Zoning's been working on it for a year already, and then it'll come to the council, and we'll look at it as well. And it's comprehensive
right.
plan to start
Right,
with, so
right.
it's very in-depth. It looks at all the properties, and it looks at property density, housing densities.
Oh, right, right.
You know, a lot of different factors in there. Goes to the Met Council. The Met Council then summarily puts it into their large
Right.
plan for the whole metro, and make sure that each city is close to following similar plans,
right.
so that you don't have one city that's going off and doing a Las Vegas
Yeah.
casino
Right.
city or something that doesn't fit in well with the whole metro plan. And Met Council then also makes sure that that plan is being looked at, that they do the sewer and water
right.
and water runoff and water treatment and all of that stuff. So.
And then you have a planning commission,
Planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning,
Yep.
so that there's two different parts to that. If people
Yes.
have backgrounds or interests in that area, they can fill out a form anytime, and then when openings occur, you let people know, right?
Yes, there's 4 commissions in the city. Planning and zoning is one of them, very important. Housing, Park and Rec, and I'm going to forget the 4th one. Park and Rec, housing, financial.
Yes.
Financial's
right.
the other one, the 4th one.
And then this gives a smaller group time to look and explore things in depth, and they can bring that information to you on the council, right?
Yeah, in fact, they recommend to the council, and the council is very cognizant of what they're looking at. Like if we have a housing issue, we'll send it to housing. If we have a planning and zoning like Topgolf or something, it'll go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their recommendation. And we try to get as many people involved there as well, because they are volunteers. They are people from in the community. They are our neighbors. They are our closest people that are living to those things. So.
And then are there some areas Brooklyn Center has looked at in terms of future redevelopment? Because you've got a lot of things you're working on right now. Does some things come up, well, maybe this part of the city we can do a little bit down the road?
Well, that's how the opportunity site is going as well. In fact, it's going in staged. Even the 32 acres will be staged as well. But further north of that is where the Kmart strip mall is, where the Brown College strip mall was.
Right.
There's some interest there that I really can't talk about yet. But eventually, and hopefully, if things all come to fruition in the next 5-10 years, that strip mall will be repurposed, the other one will be repurposed, and then that whole area where Perkins in between will be repurposed as well. So.
And all of that wouldn't be happening if you weren't doing the work now that nobody sees, right?
The work 20 years ago that nobody...
And then going back in time,
Yes.
So it takes an ongoing group of people interested to bring you to the point where you are today, because you've had a lot of redevelopment over the past 10 years, I know.
Yes. Yeah, it takes a very large commitment by the council, and so far we've been very fortunate in having councils over the last 12 years that are committed to doing redevelopment, committing to raising our tax base, keeping our taxes low, dealing with crime, all of those things. And Dan Ryan, Councilmember Dan Ryan, and I have been on the 12 years, and we've had various council members come in since then. But as each new council member comes in, they see the wisdom in continuing with the same things, because that's what they hear from the voters as well.
So. No, it's important.
Yeah.
Well, now let's go to a different area, because Brooklyn Center has been around a long time as a city, and you have been facing some city staff retirements.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us about some of the positions, kind of who's coming, who's going, where you're at now.
It's, from my perspective, it's almost a lot of the top management and directors and people in city government are looking at retiring. The latest one I heard was the city clerk, Sharon Knudsen, is looking at retiring in June. Excuse me. Gary Idle has retired. There has been other people that have retired, or they've moved on to new jobs as well.
Right.
So we have some turnover, yes, but it's almost the same as what we had with the police department a few years ago, when a lot of the older officers retired out, and then that core group of officers stayed and are still there to help train the younger people.
Oh, right, that's important.
Yes, so that's what we're seeing in the city government as well. And there's good people being hired in. We have a new communications department now that we didn't have before, and Dr. Reggie Smith, who is the deputy city manager, is kind of heading that up, and then Dr. Angel, did I say Reggie? Dr. Reggie Edwards. Is that, I think I got the two together there. And then the other one is Dr. Angel Smith. And they're both working on better communications with not only our residents, but with the Metro news services as well.
Well, and then having someone in charge, then you are more intentionally getting things done than if you leave it as an item on the agenda somewhere sometime.
Right, and that's the goal. We finally gotten to the point where property values are increasing, where the city budget now can afford to have a few extra people in it in order to go forward with some of these initiatives. We haven't had that in the past. Brooklyn Center is not the richest city in the world, as it were. But we're slightly changing that focus now to deal better with diversity, with communications, with residents, and with more of public input to hold through. So.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you could talk a little bit about getting diversity in your staff.
The staff is very diverse at the moment. Both of the doctors I mentioned, Dr. Reggie Edwards, he did a presentation last month. I think it was last month, but it was the Black American History Month.
Right.
And he has relatives that actually were captured in Africa, and he's able to follow his family tree all the way back to those individuals when they were brought over here as slaves. And Dr. Smith as well has that also. There's a much more diverse mix of city staff. And the council's been, over the years, have given direction that that's what we want to see. We want to see more of city staff that reflect the diversity that we have in our city. And City Manager Kurt Bogany has done an excellent job in bringing in people across the board who have the skills to make our city run. So.
Yeah, because that's an important thing that people don't always think about. That's happening behind the scenes again, right?
Yeah. So.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on our show again and helping people out there learn what's up and coming in the Brooklyn Center issue. We encourage you to tune in next week to watch part 2 of Brooklyn Center. And we're glad that you've been with us, and we hope you'll come back again. Bye.